live.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well for our Human Resources Committee meeting. I want to apologize. I've got a cold that I'm nursing, so if I have to either mute myself or turn off the video, you'll still be able to hear me and I'll still be able to talk, hopefully. We have 5 items on the agenda this morning. The first one relates to the approval of the minutes from June 30, 2022 from our Human Resources Committee meeting. That set of minutes were in your committee packets, which we have to, and the minutes have to be approved. So to this end, please let us know if any member has any question, comment, or correction to those minutes this time. Hearing none, then the minutes will be approved. Thank you. The second item on the agenda relates to the fiscal year 2022 best, relates to MES's performance in fiscal year 22 of its best performance goals, the status and objectives that it attained in 2022, as well as the proposed incentive payments. And Judge Malkin, I don't know if at this point, since I think we want to have these items discussed at the full board meeting, at this time, do you want to just table those and discuss them at the full board meeting so we don't have to repeat it, or do you want to have a separate discussion at this point of some of those items?
Well, given that we have so many things to do today, I think maybe we should go ahead and proceed. Everybody agree on that? You agree there? Yeah. So I think we might as well go ahead. We've got an hour here.
And if I can add, Ms. Wong, so we present to the HR committee in detail and extensive questions, and the HR committee votes, so that then the HR, although we will go over some of it, the Deputy Furketic will go over her presentation, Mr. Patel will go over his presentation, not in the same detail at the full board meeting. So this is really the time for the board members to deliberate and have the HR committee make the recommendation and vote.
Okay. So with that, Ms. Furketic, could you provide us an overview of MES's performance this past year with regard to its best objectives?
Sure, I'm happy to. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because you have seen this presentation several times. So I just want to show you what we've done, and then there was one little item that we didn't accomplish. So we accomplished all our safety goals.
Can
Yes.
Can you go back to the first goal on safety? I just
Sure.
I had a specific question. On the first one, identifying locations without a SEC approved lockout tagout program, how many locations did not have a lockout tagout program?
That is a good question. I don't know. I'll have to find that out for you.
And I guess the question then was, of that, do I assume then, however, that they are now all
They're all in
compliant with that?
compliance. Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one?
Yeah, and then the third bullet there, tracking 100% accountability for staff training. It says you tracked it, but has all required training been completed?
Okay. Next one is education. And this also, we completed all the goals here. And there will be some more information on the passing rate for certification exams that will be described at the full board meeting. It's part of the one of the Inspire Awards. So I don't want to spoil that right now, but all I can say is that our training person developed a math class, and it was hugely successful as far as helping the passing rate for certification exams. Okay, this is where we fell a little short. Everything that we needed to do was done. The sexual harassment training kind of got sideswiped by COVID because we had to shut down in January and part of February, and we weren't able to provide in-person training. And when the in-person training started back up, we were restricted to how many we could have in class. So we got, instead of 90% of our employees, we got 60%, but we achieved everything else in this goal. Any questions?
No, that seems to be something that had to be done, no matter what.
What?
So,
Yeah. We were kind of,
not a
kind of
problem.
hamstrung by
Yeah, as did about 25 million people.
people, yes.
So let me ask a question about the, excuse me, the career fair, job fair, et cetera. I know that one of the, maybe it's the young professionals
Mhm.
holding one that's coming up soon, but are you, when you talk about career fair, do you have a specific number of, beyond this initial start, do you have a specific number of schools you plan to attend? Or
We're-
participate, or how we do that?
So every HBCU, and we're trying to hit every community college, every county community college in the state. And anything that pops up that we learn about, that's an opportunity, we're trying to send a staff to. So our intention is to really increase the marketing or brand exposure of MES to the entire state, particularly VOTEX high schools, community colleges, and the 2- and 4-year universities, or 4-year universities too. But we're no limits, but the four HBCUs are just, that's a baseline.
Mhm. Right, any other questions?
I have 2 questions on goal 3, if you can go back.
Sure.
On the third bullet, where we increased the number and total amount of contracts for SBR and MBE, do we have a specific number of the increase in the dollar amount?
I have it in my office and I forgot to bring it with me, but I can, if you want to ask that during the board meeting, I can get you those numbers.
That would be great if you can do
Okay.
that. And then on the providing of training on sexual harassment, are there plans now? I mean, has it since been completed, or are there plans to make sure that the other 10% of the employees receive this training?
Yes, the training is ongoing, especially because we keep getting new people, so they need to continue the training. So they've had several classes since the beginning of the fiscal year. Everybody will be trained.
Okay, so it's possible that some may not have been trained at this point, but that will be. Okay,
Right.
thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Customer and community service, we completed all the goals here. Any questions?
How in the world can you do it all? That's my question.
No sleep. I always say sleep is
Okay.
highly overrated.
Everything.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Change, the one about update MES Wave intranet site.
Yes.
Is there something on that helps you refer information to the customer faster than you would otherwise? In other words, you going in and talking to the customer versus me going in and talking to the customer. I'm assuming this has some benefit of some.
That's our first.
That's our internal, yeah. The
Internal.
MES Wave is where we keep all our policies so staff can get to them. The class of job classifications, position classifications, all that sort of, they keep track of like all the MES newsletters, things like that can be found on the Wave for the employees.
And we are working on it, and we did put some help guides also.
Yes.
So how an employee can do that expense report, how they keep their timesheet. So we have a little section on finance, you click on it and it'll tell you how to do step by step.
And procurement training is on there too.
So I guess my question is this really a part of your outreach program or is this?
No, this is internal.
And so I guess, so the follow-up question is then, is it appropriate for this program?
It is because it's helping us be better
Yeah.
at providing it by having that education and training that's even taking place inside. And, because we're demonstrably a human resources organization, our internal customer service is really important for sustaining employees, keeping morale up. So even our health and wellness events, when they're recorded, they're put on for people that are unable to attend because of their job schedule.
And Pam, can you go back to goal 3? I have numbers for you, Ms. Wong. Okay, for the MBE, was this the one? Maybe one more, I think it was. No, it's goal 3. It was goal 3. Yeah, it was goal 3.
Yeah, increase the number.
Increase the number. Okay, yeah, the third bullet. Okay, this year we had 10 MBE prime contracts for $10.2 million. The year before we had 19 contracts, but only $4.3 million were awarded. So we increased the dollar value. For the SBR contracts, we had 24 for $15.6 million. And the year before it was 38 contracts for 11.1 million. So again, fewer contracts, more money awarded.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you, Jana, for running interference here. Okay, let's see, we did customer community service. So this one is the last of our goals, and again, completed everything. Now, I don't know if we have any questions. Okay,
Thank you.
so this is how we did, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Patel.
Good morning. So we will go over how we perform financially. Mr. Kendick told us that we achieved 98% of the goal. I'm going to go through the financial numbers, and then the board will have to make the decision what I'm presenting, and they approve it, or they want me to make some modifications, but I'm going to go through in detail how we are gathering the best funding. So for board resolution, the best funding comes from current years, which is fiscal year 22 net earnings. MES gets the net earnings from all the components that are listed here. Fringe variance is when we have available labor, we charge a fixed percentage for the fringe recovery. So whatever is the difference between the fringe recovery minus fringe expenses is fringe variance, which is $286,000. If you have more billable labor, then we'll have a more fringe recovery. If you have less fringe cost, then it will again add to the fringe variance. So $286,000 is the net earnings from fringe benefit charges minus expenses. The overhead variance works the same way. We have a fixed overhead percentages by the groups. On a billable labor, we charge those percentages for fiscal year 2022. And then we have overhead expenses, which are deducted from it. So the overhead variance for the year was $2,628,000. The project variance, which has a significant increase this year, is we do not plan to have net earnings from project variances. Our model is that we have a reimbursable model, but for certain projects like used oil, we made almost $286,000 in used oil because that is not a part of the model that is reimbursable. So when we sell the used oil, the prices were high, so we made extra income on that one. Same thing with the project variances. In fiscal year 21, we have service centers that had losses. In fiscal year 22, we still had the service center, but our focus went on billable labor. So a lot of that labor that was charged to the service center became the billable labor. And then we had a fixed rate, which was going on for the past few years. So we got a benefit of both. You know, we had a little fixed rate, which was a little higher than the actual reimbursable rate. Plus, we limited the overhead that is charged to the service center. It became billable as much as possible. So that is the biggest difference in fiscal year 22. Of course, we always have working capital. It changes, a little bit based on the billable labor, and the equipment fund doesn't make that much money. We just have a target of 100,000. But the 1.6 million big difference between fiscal year 21 and 22 came from the project variances. The interest income was 19,000. Now in fiscal year 23, it will increase because the interest rates are going up. So the total for fiscal year 22, our net earnings were 4,577,000. As I mentioned before, per the board resolution, this is the maximum amount that can be distributed for best plus and executive incentives. We have a fiscal year 2021 best remaining balance of 37,992. After the board approves that, we allocate this funding, then some employees leave MES. The best requires that when we do the distribution in November, they have to be MES employees at that time. So we had a 37,000 left over from last year because between the board approval and the distribution of best, those employees left MES. So I'm adding that because that it was designated for best and it was not distributed because the employees left. So now we have a total best pool of 4,614,000, which is almost $1 million higher than fiscal year 21. As I mentioned, mainly because of project variance, which were not budgeted, and then instead of losses, we turn into profit on those variances. Any questions on this so far? All right, next slide, please. So now we determined that the net earnings plus the previous year's 37,000 makes up the total best pool of 4,614,000. We met 98% of the goals. What I have calculated here is that we will distribute 100% of the best pool, 4,614,992. My reasoning is that we met 98% of the goal. We could not meet the sexual harassment training because of the circumstances of COVID and all that stuff. So I am still distributing 100% of the net earnings. I'm not prorating at 98%, and I'm just informing the board that this is how it is calculated. So the total best pool is 4,614,000. From that best pool, we take out the FICA, Medicare, and 401k expenses. We do not want MES current overhead paying for it. So we are already deducting, putting it aside. So when we distribute the best, that money is already put aside from current year. FICA and 401k is not deducted. So that makes a net best pool amount of $4,063,000. 60% of that is allocated to best, which is for the same amount to all the eligible employees. The best for employees is $4,025. I'll show you comparison in the next slide, which is higher than the last year. As I mentioned, we have higher net earnings than the last year. Best plus amount is the 35%, and it is 1,434,000, which is also higher than the last year, which I will show you in the next slide. And executive incentive payments are 4.67% of the best pool, which is 189,000 for 8 executives. The executive incentive payments were 10% last year. Since we have significantly more earnings, I'm recommending, and the management agreed that we're gonna go with 14%. We are keeping the same 14% limit for all other employees also. So their best and best plus amount can go up to 14% of the salary, just like the executives. Any question on it so far?
Were there complaints about payment, or just something you felt like would be a policy that the agency should have in terms of the how you split the funding?
So that is also the minimum 40% should go to the best. Okay, we are lately doing more than that, 60%, because me, Dr. Glass, the management feels like that more money should be distributed equally to all the employees. This year we are going 14% for executives, and we are going 14% limit for all other employees. But in that, it counts their best amount plus best plus amount. So the best goes to everybody. Best plus goes to people who are great performance evaluation.
And it's been a 10% cap in previous years, so
that's-
we're actually going up to 14% for those.
So that's the history. The board resolution states up to 15% for the executives. And prior to that, historically, prior administration went as high as 20%. But the board would approve it, but it went over the official board resolution. There have been, in my 2 years, there have been issues, haven't really discussed it with the executive team, with how best plus is allocated. And so sometimes even with that executive limit of 20%, best plus on top of some best or some senior managers went high. And that might have been a connection between the managing director level and their people below them. So in an effort to make sure and ensure that best plus makes it further down the org chart, Mr. Patel and I discussed it in the first year and decided that limits should be placed on what is distributed from best plus to every employee so that it reaches more people. I have heard comments back in one-on-ones with staff that because of perceived inequity in how best plus is distributed, some would even recommend that we should just distribute best and best plus as one total to everyone. But that's something
You
that,
can do that, though. You're not giving everybody a best plus reward.
first, no, we're not. So that it would have to be a board resolution anyway. That is, so the best plus program exists because the board decided that best plus should exist, and there should be more given to high performers as helpful retention. But there's more transparency and openness now. So staff made comments about when they don't get best plus,
Right.
all right? I hope that answers your question, which was why, and there is always discussion because there's a significant amount of money being distributed. So there's a lot of, we want to have everyone understand the process and be open as we present to you and have the board make the decision. First via committee.
Well, I can understand that person who wants 100% bonus and only gets 99 and is satisfied. But you do have to have some limits. I appreciate that.
The whole idea is that it helps people sort of go a little more down the road.
And
Rather than being in the middle of the road.
And it is directly related. The managing directors it is explained to them that it is connected to the performance evaluations from that fiscal year. So there shouldn't be a poor performer in that fiscal year getting best plus to an outside amount, that ends up saying that there might be favoritism that's not related to performance.
Right.
So best plus is directly related to performance.
And contributions towards the.
And
meeting the best
contributions towards the
goals.
goals, yes.
What happens if an employee does not have a satisfactory evaluation? Do they still get this incentive payment?
No, they do not.
No, they do not.
And if they don't, what happens to the balance of their presumed allocation? Does that go back into the pot and get reshared by everybody, or does it just go back as a reserve?
So this best pool is calculated based on the net earnings. When we decided these amounts, we knew that who will be qualified for best. So people who were had unsatisfactory performance were excluded from the best calculations to begin with. The only difference going to happen is between now and distribution of best. If somebody leaves with some MES, then that money will be left over.
So people that have left MES between July 1st and now were already in the calculation, to be clear. Because eligibility was based on the year, but as you made the calculation, you already included the last 3 months.
Right, so as I think this was done last week, so up to that, if they left, is already in the calculations. So yeah, this is as of the employee, but employee may leave this week, next week, so that's a dynamic calculation. But we took all that into consideration when we came up with this amounts last week.
I do have a question, perhaps of Sean. Sean, is there any policy or requirement that we use all net earnings as the bonus pool? Is there some policy that we have to use the entire pool of net earnings for bonuses?
There is a board resolution that created the program, and that's what lays out how the funds are apportioned.
But does the board resolution specifically say all net earnings in any given fiscal year shall be allocated for bonuses, or is there some discretion by the board to do less than the full set of net earnings?
If I may, the board has a discretion based on the history, because we were not distributing the entire best pool in the previous years. I think for last 2 years, the purpose of this net earnings are twofold. Either distribute in the best pool or add to our contingency funds, which is the unrestricted net earnings. We have enough unrestricted net earnings because every year except for the last year, every year we were putting some money into contingency fund from this best pool. So now we have reached sufficient amount and we do not need to add the contingency fund. So last year was the first year where we decided we're gonna distribute 100%. This is the second year that we're gonna distribute 100%. But Ms. Wong, board has a discretion if you want to add to the contingency fund. But in my opinion, and based on the history, I think our contingency fund is sufficient and it does not need any more additions to it. But board is welcome to say, okay, we do not want to distribute this, we want to add to contingency fund. That is possible. But I recommend that since we have enough, we distribute. And this kind of best pool may not happen all the years. So we just want to reward the employees who work towards it, and the circumstances and the tight management controls on available labor resulted in this. So, but yes, this is the full amount, and board can make the decision on it. And if it is anything changed, it will be prorated on each one of them. We're not going to take it out from one or the other.
Mr. Patel, how much do we have in the contingency fund?
So we have $30 million in what we call net assets. 15 million of that is invested in our equipment infrastructure. So we have 15 million unrestricted. It changes between 13 and 15 million. In the board, we have asked for more vehicles. So we are trying to buy 30 vehicles, trucks in this year, and we are placed on the order of the other one. So when we spend money on those kind of things, we're gonna do the infrastructure for EV charging stations. So when we do that, you know, a couple of million goes into invested in capital assets from the net earning. But right now, you know, we are looking at 15 million in investments in fixed assets and 15 million in unrestricted net earnings.
Ms. Wong, if I can also add, so what is also alluded to is that we are a state agency, and during different times in the past, when the state has been under duress, MES, particularly 06, 08, Director Harkins, had to negotiate with the state on returning net assets to the state, sometimes in lieu of a what do you call it? Furlough. So there is a conversation that goes on between the executive office and the Department of Budget and Management and the governor when the state has hard times. So if we were to continually add to net assets, that the funds that MES employees work hard to accumulate could be directed or negotiated or requested from the state in a time of need. That doesn't exist right now because the state has a $2.5 billion surplus, but it is something to consider for the board to consider if we accumulated funds that were not directed for any use.
Understood. I'm just concerned about the optics of
Understood.
this matter.
So if we could go to the next slide, it gives you comparison of last 5 years. So just compared to fiscal year 21, we had 680 eligible employees for BEST. And this year is 606 because of the vacancies, the turnovers. So that is one of the reasons that the BEST went up by $800 because we have less number of employees who are qualified for the BEST. And the BEST plus amount went up significantly higher is because of this project variances, as I mentioned. We had a huge losses in 21 because of the service centers. We recovered those losses, make the those labor billable. So this is only one time on that project variances where we have a significantly good amount of earnings. So this is comparing for like total incentive payments from 3 million to 4 million. And I can understand your concern about the optics, but this is what the employees work for. This is what is just that this is a good year for project variances because of the management controls, management focus on billable labor. Our raise for years, next year, the year after that, is based on our overhead expenses and billable labor. So this kind of a variance is not gonna show up again. So, you know, I mean, if we can increase the billable labor significantly, of course, we will have those kind of numbers. But other than that, so that's why we are putting, and another thing is that, you know, we do not want to add to the our net assets. So that's why we are recommending to give out all the earnings of the fiscal year 22.
Well, and the other thing too to know, if you look at the number of teammates, we've had a significant vacancy rate. And we're doing a lot of work now, recruiting and adding new positions. So that number is good. The number of teammates, that's going to change and that'll go up next year.
Number of teammates based on being the best.
Correct. Meaning the best
Meaning they're
criteria.
having, yeah, I was going to say having a performance
So one of the thing,
Meets
one of the,
So you could actually drop. God forbid.
If God forbid that we have a bunch of people that don't do their jobs right, yeah, but, or we have more vacancies, God forbid. Hopefully not.
What's the usual, and I know things differ from time to time, what is the usual rate of starting from 0 to 100% where you would find people who are not doing their work?
We have a natural turnover of about 100 people a year on back to history. There's a presentation that Mr. Patel and I worked on in 2020 that because of your onboarding as a new board and everything else in the last year, we have not updated and we have not given to you as a part of class and compensation. Also to clarify the differences between the state and some of the benefits that MES employees are not receiving, which causes the juxtaposition of our personnel system. And the employees understand that they're not getting some of those benefits. So their actual wage being on average higher than a state employee and their receiving of best plus executive incentive is in lieu of a 22% at last time we checked the number contribution to the state pension, which when you retire is going to give you 60% of your highest 3 years of salary. So a lot of times, even with state clients, when I've had to educate them on what were our positives and what are negatives for being an MES employee, when you get to 20, 25, 30 years of service in the state as an MES employee, you look back and you might, it's not me, I don't have those types of years, you might look back and say, well, you're at a disadvantage because you don't have 60% for life,
60%.
and you also don't have medical for life.
Right.
Are they
So-
told that when they come in, or how does this?
I don't know, and the onboarding, so here's a clarification. In the onboarding process, employees are told what MES provides.
Okay.
If you had to explain to a young person,
It says, here's what you get if you didn't go here.
if you're not gonna advertise against yourself. I argue that when you have a 401k and you make contributions over a lifetime, and if you get the bonuses and you make contributions to your 401k, that then you will have a legacy you can give to your children.
Right.
When you have a pension, you have a legacy you will give to yourself for the rest of your life.
Right.
And it's a mindset. I've worked in both systems multiple times, and it depends on the mindset you have. But I just want to, I need to present that to you all, because if you haven't worked in the state, Ms. Wong, you might not know how the state structure is different, and then how MES is different. And one last point, not to do too much, is that when you work for MES, there are no excuses when it comes to getting the job done. And then not to disparage any person working for someplace else. So you're when what Mr. Patel is alluding to is that MES staff are now the culture of the system is that this exists. The culture of the system is that when Ms. Donner asks them to do something on a cold day, on a popular island in the dead of winter, they do it. And it's like, so there's a command and control that exists at MES that I don't want to disparage any other entities, but I just want you all to know that command and control exists at MES, and that's part of the exchange between the staff. I'm stop talking.
so I'll give you some statistics, why this number is 606. In fiscal year 2022, we had 162 termination resignations. Okay. Out of those 162, we hired 159 in the last year. So the net was almost the same. However, 108 of them were hired after December 31, 21. So they did not pass the probation as of June 30. So they're out of the best pool. So that's the one big, even though we hired almost all of them, the date of hire makes a big difference. As far as the best distribution is concerned, as I mentioned, is based on two facts. We meet the best goals. Number two, we have the net earnings. And our overhead rates are still lower than most of the competition. It is just our efficiency, our billable labor, our employees' skilled labor, the work, the satisfaction of the customers that is resulting in this net. So that's why I think it's fair, whatever each year, we may not have that kind of a net earnings next year. So I think it will, when I'm presenting that, I think, it is fair that, we give that employees whatever we earn. But it's board's decision. Of course, the other alternate is go to the net earnings and contingency.
If you
Any
said-
questions?
I do have one question. If you said, looking at places that are done only by the state, that are similar to what we do here. If you said, all right, I'm going to go use the state's part, or I'm going to come here, where do you draw the line between people that are doing that back and forth and getting more?
So it is incredibly difficult to recruit a state employee that has crossed
It's already
16
cost
years.
yeah.
They crossed 16 years in the state, then they have crossed medical. They cross 20 years, they can technically, if they're over 50, retire. If they, and then it becomes, if they're over 20 years, the only job they're coming for is mine, Ellen's, or one of the managing directors. There are no jobs that will make up for getting rid of reaching 30.
Okay.
You're counting down to get your 30 at that point.
Okay, thanks.
So I guess now, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer it. But then in your package, you have this best proposal, but this is the summary of it. And if it is beneficial to you, we can move back a slide to make your decision on that. But this is what the board or HR committee approval is required on what the amounts I presented to you.
Thank you.
Just Malkin, on the proposed incentive payments, will you be requiring the HR committee to make a proposal and to the board? Or can we just defer this discussion to the board? Because ultimately it's going to be the board that has to approve this incentive payment package.
I think the second thing that you said is probably where we should go. What do you all think?
I believe that it's usually voted out of committee, but Mr. Coleman can second or something, or chime in as the board counsel.
The board, or rather the committee can, if it decides to not take a vote, can do so and just present the entire proposed payment to the board for them to vote on that. I believe the resolution requires the board itself to approve it. But it has, knowing that it has the imprimatur of the HR committee, provides further support to the full board that this is a reasonable proposal by management.
I think that's probably where I would head at the moment. What do you all think too?
Which way? Just to take it to the full board? We lead it?
Well, that's what we've done with some other programs.
I personally feel that it would be helpful to have the full board input into it before voting, which is why, for me personally, if we were to vote now just within the committee, I probably would abstain. So, but that's just me, so I don't know.
That's fine. I'll agree with you on that. You
Thank you.
have the same idea.
All right.
We have, okay. That's fine.
So then next, we have maybe about another 15 minutes to cover 3 other items on the agenda. The next one, and I think we can do this fairly quickly. Marnie Doliner will be presenting a new proposed career path for environmental specialists. And I don't think we need a particular approval from the committee or the board on this, but I think it's just more information related. So Marnie can enlighten us on what would be required. Thank you.
Well, so this is similar to the operator in training and the operator career path. And similar to the prior decision, you know, we can take it to the full board. I have relied on the board to approve these because this does change salaries moving forward. And so but anyway, we can go through it, and if it gets tabled for a month, and we'll need an HR committee meeting next month anyway. But anyway, Ms. Dollar, please make it.
Just like Dr. Glass said, just like the OIT and operator series that we restructured and the board of directors approved, we've developed an enhanced environmental specialist career ladder to help with an emphasis on education, training, and professional growth to help us serve our clients better. And also, we've had difficulty attracting and retaining junior level environmental specialists, and even losing environmental specialists and senior environmental specialists to higher paying positions outside of MES. So this is one of the reasons why we developed this career path for. And some of the recommendations include establishing training, certifications, and educations at the milestones for each of the different levels. And it also includes moving the environmental specialist trainee from a grade 2 to a grade 3 to better align with other classification levels at that same grade. And then it also adds a new senior environmental specialist level after the senior environmental specialist, which will provide another opportunity for growth for our staff. Next slide.
All right. We don't need to right, you're sitting here, we don't need to put it into a statement. Other than, I mean, we're not gonna put it ahead of the entire board on this, right?
No, so if you don't vote it out of the committee, it won't go to the board, no. But we don't.
Yeah.
We won't move forward with a path like this that changes salaries and makes this much adjustment until the committee and the board approve it.
All right, Ms. Vaughn, where do you want to go on that?
I've reviewed it. I don't know if the board has any questions, Ms. Doliner or Dr. Glass.
I've read it as well, and it certainly looks fine to me.
I feel
If
this
not,
makes sense.
I'm sorry, did you move to recommend this for approval to the board, Mr. Witt?
I do. I feel this makes sense. It's in line with what we did for the OIT policy and the other items. I reviewed everything. It makes full sense to me.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections, abstentions from anybody? If not, the motion will pass. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is with regard to the time clock policy. Mr. Patel will present, and I believe, Mr. Patel, you're looking for approval of this policy as well.
Correct. So the time clock policy, we have time clocks in use at certain facilities, but those are manual time clocks, like a punch card time clock. The time clock policy here, we are planning to have digital time clocks. As a matter of fact, at a couple of facilities, we have already installed digital time clocks just for the child purposes. The advantage of the time clock is because now you have a digital record of in and out time for the employees. And we have made a policy statement that, for at a designated facilities, which are mainly the operating facilities, for non-exempt employees to use this time clock. It will be only implemented at 2 facilities, but the policy requires that it is recommended by managing director in charge of this facility and approved by managing director of finance, because we are planning to integrate this digital time clock into Workday instead of having a manual punching and then somebody writing it and then manually entering Workday. We have made enough the controls so that if an employee makes an error, that he forget to clock in, forget to clock out, forget to clock out for lunch. Supervisor can modify. They're not gonna modify the time clock report. They can modify before it is entered in Workday integration. They can modify, so the integration will go directly from the time clock to Workday, but the supervisor will be able to modify if someone forgets to punch in or out. Even in that case, the supervisor will need an approval from his manager. And the employee will be informed that a change is made in a digitally stamped time because of this reason. So we have built in enough safety and controls for it. I think, and the employees will be paid based on what is entered in the Workday, which is 90% of the time, it will be time clock integration. But when there is an override because of the error, then it will be keyed directly in Workday. But all the pay will come from the Workday, what is entered in the Workday.
When will this start?
I think we have started at the facility, but right now, all we are doing is getting the reports. It's not integrated.
Okay.
So we have started, I think, one facility. Midshore is mainly the first two facilities that we're gonna go to. And there's a time clock at one facility for almost 3 months now. The other one we just ordered. So we are just trying to see how we can integrate that into Workday. Digital time clocks are pretty much standard.
I was gonna
What
say,
kind of a reports it gives you, how we can integrate to the Workday. That's the one that we are working.
Put a low and put a low right now, so it's gonna go. Yeah. Any questions on that?
This is a quick one. Is there any pushback on time clocks?
We haven't heard any issues yet.
It's pretty new.
Well, they've had,
Well,
as I said, these facilities have had time
They've got
clocks for a
time
long
clocks. This
time.
is
It's
a-
just, this started, also, we needed to put a new client time clock out at Midshore. And so the thought was, well, it would be great if we could do it and integrate it into Workday, because what was happening at some of the facilities is the administrator at the facility is actually taking the time clock readings and then doing the timesheets for the employees. So this would also,
I
streamline
get the
that.
efficiency. I just wanted to know if there's anytime you make changes with employees and you just need, maybe I'm a bad example.
I'll take care of it. Just go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they are used to the time clocks, now it will be digitally stamped, that's, but it is the, what it is, because they have their ID card, they swipe it, so it is, they know it is correct. This is the time they checked in, this is the time to check out, so. But as I say, if there's an error or something, we have made provisions for it to correct it. So if an employee has any questions, we will have provision to correct it.
I have a question regarding this. Out here in Garrett County, I know some of the MES operators have remote work locations where, there's not internet access. So something that's going to span out this way. I'm just curious for the men how that's going to work, because they don't necessarily report to the office every morning. They report to a remote location to pick up their work vehicle and then go to each plant individually, because they're small facilities.
Mr. Witt, it won't be rolled out everywhere.
Okay.
It won't be rolled out in that scenario.
Yeah.
It's more, we have centralized facilities with a lot of staff that have a centralized location for a time clock. And landfills and MRFs.
Yeah.
Those larger facilities.
Okay. Thank you.
I think this policy makes sense. Unless there are any other questions, I entertain a motion to approve this from the HR committee for approval to the board.
I so motion.
I'll second.
Any second? All those in favor indicate aye or raise your hand. Anyone opposed or abstaining? If not, the motion passes. Thank you. In the last few minutes, we also have a presentation of the background check policy. I don't know whether at this point you're looking for actual vote on this one because the material, you're not, that's what I thought. So just for a review, thank you.
So in lieu of time, I'm gonna just supersede Mr. King. We've been working on this for a while. I really wanted your opinions on the policy. And since the board meeting is only 3 minutes away and everyone will have to go take a break, I just wanted to say if there are any questions you have, I would hope that you can share them with me and we can go back to the Attorney General's office and.
I've got one quick one.
Sure.
In here where it says employment division, et cetera. Let me see what. Wait a minute. Yeah, where it says potentially disqualifying convictions, criminal convictions, runs all the way down. And the question is, you know, in this state, we still are a common law area, and you could probably get something between 1 penny and 30 years. Am I right? You don't know. No. So the question is, what do you look at as what a criminal conviction is? In this state, criminal convictions are driving too fast, as opposed to many other people. So I think this is something that we really got to take a look at. And what happens to people that have been in jail but are out and they have been in good conduct, I'm sorry, or they have given a complete pass over and they don't have anything back on the record anymore, but they've been there. These things are really difficult. So I think we have to take a real good look at this. For example, what happens in the state when people come in and that kind of thing. I think that's probably where we ought to take a look because, of course, the Attorney General is in charge of that. So I think we probably ought to be right around where that is. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem because somebody's going to say, "Wait a minute, you didn't get me in. They didn't get me in, but I have been totally washed out. I'm fine. I did my time." And then you have the misdemeanor versus felony. And in this state, you don't know where it goes. It goes up and down. And people that have been in the federal system, it is always, roughly always, up to $1,000 or 5 years. No, actually 1 year. That's your bottom line, and everything else is a felony. So, I mean, some felonies that are looking at that dog. You can't watch those things very carefully. So I think we have to, I would say, go look at all that.
It's tough. At this point, I think that we literally would have to hire a consultant.
Yeah.
And maybe utilize the AG's consulting firm. Mr. Coleman's office has some larger white shoe firms that are.
Sean, just before we go, we got a minute or two. We're not going to be killed. Sean, what's your idea on that?
Oh, yeah, it's fine if we seek some outside assistance on this.
Okay.
We've been struggling with how to apply which convictions to which types of positions within the agency, because that's the challenge. MES has so many different kinds of positions. An embezzlement conviction might be disqualifying if someone's going to work in finance, but not necessarily if they're going to work as a laborer. And so trying to mesh all of those various types of offenses with the types of positions has been a
Or
challenge.
somebody who's had one in the military. Nobody thinks about that. That is actually a conviction, federal conviction. So you have to be careful of that. Thank you, Sean.
Judge, it's 9:30, so I think we do need to conclude our meeting unless anyone has any other business at this point. And Pam, will we be able to take a 5-minute break before we start the next meeting, or do we just need to join into the board meeting at this point?
5-minute break would be wonderful.
Yes, I need.
Okay, so we can join into the board meeting, what, in 5 minutes, 10 minutes? What time do you want us to join in? Because it's 9:31 right now.
Well, the line is open now, so you are welcome to log in at any point. I need to run
Okay.
downstairs and switch computers and so do a quick check, but it'll probably be at least 5 minutes before all that's ready.
Okay, very good. Thank you, everyone.
Remind me of senior day. Anybody know what a senior day is? Not right now.
Down in Annapolis, yeah.